Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on a Monday morning. Yes, I will be doing the halftime report today as well, so we'll have unusual there. We also got some unusual option activity coming here as well. But before we do that, let's look back to last week. We had that incredible start last week because of the news of the vaccine, right? And then we absolutely were skyrocketing last week. Markets moved, and they moved abruptly to the upside for the most part, and a really sharp move. And especially on Monday, we had that move that was up 13, 14, 15, 1700 points in the pre-market. We actually sold off late in the session, still finished up the day with up over 800 points. But today, not nearly as much, but it's Monday again, and there's more vaccine news, and it's Moderna. But before we get to that, when we looked at last week, we looked at last Friday, we actually looked like the markets were going to open up a couple of hundred points. They did, and then they continued to move to the upside. A lot of that having to do with the earnings. Earnings very strong out of two big Dow stocks, Cisco and Disney. And that combination really did show a lot to the markets about where we are. We've gone through the big majority of the earnings season already, and now we just continue to see a few of the names that still continue to pop up. Obviously, two Dow names, really very meaningful, but a big, broad move for the markets. Energy up about 3.5% on Friday. You had the financials up about 1.5%. You had the industrials, you had the semiconductors, you had the Dow itself up about 400 plus points. You had the NASDAQ up 1% or 120 points. So a really broad-based, nice move to the upside when you look back to Friday. So Cisco was up about 7+% at different times during the day. Boeing recovered from some of the losses that it had taken on Thursday. It's been kind of moving around, but mostly to the upside. You had names like Walgreens and eBay and Applied Materials and Ulta and JD all on the move. MGM up about 8% on Friday. But the really explosive move, as I was saying, some of these energy names are really absolutely flying. When you look over and you see Marathon and Valero and Holly, you look at Phillips 66, you look at Apache, all these names really exploding to the upside, anywhere between 6 and 8% moves. Very strong moves to the upside. So that was really the strength. Some of the weakness, some of the obvious characters out there, the Zooms, DocuSign, those names getting pushed to the downside. Zoom was down somewhere close to about 6%, I think, or thereabouts. Docu was down about 3% or so. That volatility index, now we've talked about this kind of bumping and moving around, but mostly moving to the downside, and closed somewhere near that 23 level, about where you'd almost expect it. Although we are getting that kind of movement, but we're seeing a little bit of that tension kind of come out of the volatility index right now, as the moves have been primarily to the upside, and that in a big way for the most part. Some really big moves, even though they've been a little bit choppy here and there. Some really strong moves. 34.8 million contracts trading on Friday. Wow, what an unbelievable week we had in terms of the volumes in the derivatives markets, that we hit that all the time. It was absolutely extraordinary. Once again, multiple days, well over 30 million plus contracts on those days. NEO, 3 million contracts on Friday in NEO, well above where Apple was, north of 1 million, but still short of the daily average for Apple. Tesla, about 650,000, gives you a little bit of an idea. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to the unusual option activity, the one thing that did stand out when we're looking at all of what was happening on Friday, the energy space and the unusual option activity that continues to come in to the energy space is something that we've been talking about. We've been marveling at it, and we've watched these big, huge, massive moves out of the XLE, the OIH, some of the bigger beta names. We've got more of that coming your way in just a second. So last week it was Pfizer, the big news. This week, Moderna, big news. Markets were absolutely rocketing in the early, not nearly what they were last week, but up about 440 points in the pre-market, 450 points or so. NASDAQ to the downside. So you're seeing that dislocation once again occurring. However, as we get into the trading day, all of a sudden, we're only up about 300 points. Now, we've been bouncing back and forth in the we're only 21 minutes into the first 21 minutes of the day, but let's call it the first half hour. We've been bouncing around. We've been up 300, we've been up 400, we've been up 350. Right now, we are up 350. We actually, you look over at the NASDAQ was in negative territory. It was down 45 points in the pre-market. We got towards flat as we got to the early part, right as we got into the opening and the opening bell. Now we're looking at the NASDAQ up about 48 points, so close to about a 0.5% move to the upside. Dow still outpacing it, up about 1% right now to the upside, 340 points right now as it's quickly moving all over the place. No significant safety concerns was the real takeaway from what we were hearing from Moderna. So this actually even sounded more positive on this news than the Pfizer news last week. There's temperature reasons that come into play as well. But nonetheless, we are still looking out into the future, at least a little bit. And I think that's probably why once we got through last week, we are looking at this week. We're not seeing quite the same sort of an impact on this news, even though this news is likely better than the news we got last Monday. So pretty interesting. So we got to look at November and just point this out, because this is pretty extraordinary. We're 2 weeks into November. The markets have been rocketing up. I talked about that already, but we've had a 1.3% or greater, all the way up to a little over a 2% move in 6 of the 10 trading days so far that we've had so far in November. So pretty extraordinary moves, and almost all those moves, 6 out of 10 at least, to the upside in a significant way. And the downside moves not nearly to the same extent as what we were seeing to the upside. So still seeing cases start to explode across the country, still concerns, obviously, across the country. And that's probably why, even though people are very excited in the pre-market, starting to ease back maybe some of that excitement, just because the reports that we're hearing from the hospitals, from the ICU units and all the rest of that, and especially in the Midwest here, we're talking about South Dakota, North Dakota, really starting to stand out in terms of how many cases are starting to pop up there. So that's something. But on this positive news from a vaccine, you've got some huge moves out of, well, the usual characters. Carnival Cruise, Norwegian Cruise Lines. You got Moderna itself, which is the company with this incredible potential vaccine that's coming out there. Hotels like Marriott, take a look at bookings as well. We're talking about moves that are 3%, 5%, 6%, 7% moves to the upside. You know what else is really on the move right now? Financials. Financials have had a pretty decent run of late, and the pullbacks haven't been as extreme as they had in the past when we spiked up and we pulled all the way back to where we were. We haven't seen that yet. Matter of fact, right now, financials, you look over at the XLF, it was up about 2%. We are slipping steadily. But you look over at American Express, JP Morgan, Citi was up 4% early on. Most of these names up 3% or more to the upside when you're looking at the financials, but that could be changing as we're only up now about 280 points. So where you can hear how fast this is moving. That was just 3 minutes ago I was talking about the Dow in the 340 range. So industrials also up, give or take, call it about 1%. You got Boeing, you got Dow, you got DuPont, you got 3M, you've got a variety of those different names across the industrial space moving to the upside, but it's really energy, and we already talked about that. But Chevron, a monster move to the upside. You've got Concho, you got Diamondback, EOG, Continental, those big beta names really exploding to the upside. So we always like to hit a little bit of unusual option activity. I'm going to give you some now. I got to give you 2 different ones, or maybe 3 later on when you see me on the halftime report. But right now, let's get a little AMD action. It was the very first name that hit. It hit right out of the gate. Stock was trading right around 81.50, and they're buying the 81 strike calls 2 weeks out. They expire November 27th. So about 7,000 of these trading anywhere between $2.40 up to about $3. Now, these, again, are already in the money by about 50 cents in terms of where the stock was when this occurred. We all know things can move very rapidly in this marketplace, but I'll tell you what, take a look over at the SMH. Another day where it was absolutely rocketing to the upside when you had other areas, a lot of those names in the NASDAQ, at least early on, really weren't moving to the upside. You took a big, nice move to the upside out of the SMH. AMD really looking strong early, 81.5. Let's just see if those options continue to play out now. They do give you 2 weeks. These aren't expiring this week. They are expiring 2 weeks. So there is a little bit of time with these options. But as always, understand the options world. If you don't understand the options world, get that education. You can get it at Market Rebellion, the best in the industry. By far, the best in the industry. Our guys do an incredible job of educating people. And you don't get to proceed unless you absolutely go through the course the right way and have passing levels along the way. Then you actually can reach up to the next level and the next level and the next level and have a much better understanding of what's going on. You heard what I said earlier, nearly 35 million contracts trading on Friday. Looks like the start of a very busy day today again. So before I sign off, 250 points to the upside on the Dow. That's about 0.8% right now. NASDAQ only up about 20 points. We were just up significantly more than that, so up about 0.25% right now. and the VIX trading right around 2370, just underneath that 24 level. So it's starting to creep up a little bit as the markets have taken back a little bit of what was that very early 400 plus type rally that we were seeing, and then bouncing around between 300 and 400. Right now about 250 to the upside. Folks, I'll see you at noon. Have a great day of trading. Best of luck to you, and get educated. Understand the derivatives markets. Very, very critical. That is the growth in the markets today. Giddy up.